Most people live as though life is happening to them, unaware that it is merely responding to what they carry within. Patterns are not imposed by life, they are self-created loops of unconscious memory. What you do not release, you are destined to repeat, not because the world is cruel, but because your inner software keeps running the same program. This is not karma in some mystical sense, this is simply inertia. Awareness is the force that can cut through that cycle. Once you see the loop, truly see it, not as a thought, but as a lived realization, it begins to break down. When a pattern repeats in your life, emotionally, mentally, even situationally, it is not punishment, it is a mirror. Most people are trapped not by events, but by their own reactions. You relive the same heartbreak, the same fear, the same failure, not because life demands it, but because you haven't released the emotional residue attached to it. This residue becomes the lens through which you view every new moment, creating a loop of repetition. But once you drop the lens, clarity comes. You no longer project the past onto the present. Release is not an act of forgetting, it is the art of remembering without being ruled. Memory is a tool, not a master. But if you cling to it, you give it power to shape your present moment. Healing is never about erasing experiences, it is about disarming them. When you release, you don't lose anything, you simply stop carrying what is no longer alive. And in that lightness, you move differently. You respond rather than react. You see rather than assume. The power to release lies in stillness. In silence, the mind stops rehearsing and the heart begins to reveal. Most people think they need to fight their inner patterns, but the truth is, you don't have to fight anything. Just stop feeding it. If you refuse to identify with the old emotion, the loop dies of hunger. Letting go doesn't mean you no longer care, it means you care enough to stop bleeding for what no longer exists. This is grace, unforced, unhurried, yet deeply transformative. Real freedom is not found somewhere far in the future. It is right here, in your willingness to stop dragging the past into the now. When you release, you reclaim your energy, your clarity, your aliveness. Don't repeat what you were never meant to carry. Don't loop through lessons already learned. Just be present, and in that presence, life renews itself, fresh, alive, and untouched by yesterday. Most people don't realize they are living inside a script they didn't consciously write. The faces may change, the surroundings may evolve, but the emotional drama remains eerily familiar. If you observe closely, you will see the same fears, the same disappointments, the same longings repeat themselves like a film stuck on loop. This is not accidental. These repetitions are not life's doing, they are your own inner patterns playing out again and again, simply because you have not yet stepped out of the role you've been unknowingly rehearsing. To step out of the script, you must first become aware that there is a script. You must observe, not react, not judge, not justify, just observe. Watch how your emotions follow predictable paths. Notice how certain triggers lead to the same outcomes. Until you are aware of this inner theatre, you cannot be free from it. It is only through the clarity of witnessing that you begin to see the strings, and once you see the strings, you are no longer the puppet. Many people try to rewrite their story without changing the script. They move to new places, seek new relationships, chase new dreams, but the same unresolved energy follows them like a shadow. This is why external change rarely brings lasting freedom. Your real transformation does not happen in the scene, it happens in the actor. When you become conscious of your role, express self, you can choose to step off the stage entirely. You can simply stop performing the same suffering again and again. This is not about becoming passive or indifferent. It is about becoming so aware that you can no longer be manipulated by your own unconscious tendencies. The moment you no longer believe the emotion, the pattern begins to dissolve. And as it dissolves, a new possibility arises, a moment that is unscripted, unconditioned, and alive with presence. This is not a better story. It is life beyond stories. The power lies in observation, not as a passive witness, but as a conscious presence. When you see the loop, you can step out of it. And in that stepping out, there is immense liberation. You are no longer acting from old wounds or stale memories. You are simply here unburdened. The script ends and life begins. To release something is not to fight it, but to become so aware of it that it simply dissolves. Most people think letting go means pushing something away, suppressing it, or replacing it with something else. But true release does not come from resistance. It arises from a space of deep, clear seeing. When you bring something fully into the light of your awareness, without judgment, without trying to fix it, it starts to lose its weight. It begins to melt, not because you forced it out, but because your conscious presence no longer allows it to survive. When you fight an emotion, you are actually feeding it. Your resistance becomes its fuel. What you run away from grows in the shadows. You own yourself, but what you toward with total openness begins to loosen its grip. This is the alchemy of awareness. You are not trying to win a battle with your past or your pain. You are simply allowing it to be seen for what it is, an echo, not a truth. And in that silent seeing, the emotion passes like a cloud, no longer anchored to your being. Awareness is not a mental exercise, it is a living presence. When you sit with an old wound, not to fix it, not to wallow in it, but to truly witness it, it reveals its root. You're merely expressing, you begin to see how you clung to it, how it became part of your identity. And the moment you see that clearly, a gap is created between you and the emotion. That gap is freedom. That space is where healing happens, not by effort, but by understanding. In this state, there is no need to forgive, forget or justify, there is only presence. And in that presence, the old burden no longer finds a home to rest in. You are no longer trying to control the pain or reshape the past. You are simply awake, and in that awakened state, release is not something you do, it is something that happens on its own, effortlessly. So understand this, nothing binds you more than unconsciousness, and nothing frees you more than awareness. The chains were never outside, they were always within your perception. The moment you stop fighting and start seeing, what once felt like a mountain becomes a mist. There is no drama in it anymore, no identity, just space, just freedom. The past holds no power if you do not fuel it with fresh emotion every day. This is not a poetic idea, it is a profound truth. What happened is no longer happening, but what keeps it alive is your daily investment in it. Every time you revisit a painful memory with the same emotional charge, you are not remembering, you are reliving. You are keeping the wound open, not because life insists on it, but because you continue to bleed into it with fresh emotion. The memory itself is harmless. It is your identification with it, your constant reanimation of it, that gives it the power to hurt you again and again. When something painful arises from the past, most people respond not with awareness, but with reaction. They feel the same anger, the same grief, the same betrayal, and in that moment, the past becomes their present all over again. But what if you could feel the memory arise and simply see it as a wave passing through? Not suppressing it, not dramatizing it, just witnessing. When you stop feeding it, the energy it thrives on begins to wither. What remains is a dry shell of what once had so much emotional weight. You must understand, you are not the memory, you are the one who is aware of the memory. That small shift in perception is liberation. Because when you know you are the seer, not the seen, the past loses its claws. You are no longer caught in its storm. You are the sky in which it passes. The more deeply you sit in this awareness, the more the emotional charge of past events begins to dissolve, not through force, but through presence. Release does not come by changing the past, nor by pretending it didn't happen. It comes by refusing to be bound by it today. You can acknowledge what was without emotionally reenacting it. You can remember without being possessed by the memory. This is the real strength, not to forget, but to no longer suffer when you remember. So if you truly want freedom, don't ask how to erase the past. Ask how to stop giving it fresh life every day. That power lies in you, not in what happened, but in how you relate to it now. In this moment, If you are aware, you can choose not to repeat the pain. You can choose to be free. If you become the watcher, not the sufferer, the hold of repetitive suffering weakens. This is not about being indifferent or emotionally numb. It is about shifting your identity from the one entangled in pain to the one simply observing it. Suffering feeds on your identification. The more you say, "This is happening to me," the more tightly it grips you. But the moment you step back and become the silent witness, just watching the emotion rise and fall like a wave, you begin to see it for what it truly is, a passing state, not a permanent truth. The watcher is not distant, it is deeply present. It doesn't suppress or analyze, it just sees. When you become that pure awareness, suffering loses its ability to possess you. You may still feel the ache, but it doesn't drown you. There's a space between you and the experience, and in that space lies tremendous power. That space is the birthplace of wisdom. From there, you can respond, not react. You can choose, not just repeat. The cycle begins to break, not because the pain disappears, but because you're no longer caught in its momentum. This shift is not intellectual, it is experiential. You cannot just tell yourself to be the watcher. You must become still enough to notice the one who is always watching. In that stillness, you'll find that the mind may scream, emotions may surge, but you remain untouched. The drama continues, but the actor has stopped believing the role is real, and with that, a certain serenity enters. A clarity that suffering cannot shake. As you practice being the watcher, something miraculous happens, the emotions lose their sting, the thoughts lose their urgency, and the patterns lose their grip. You are no longer reacting from wounds, you are seeing through them. The pain may visit, but it cannot stay. The story may echo, but it does not define you. You have found the seat of your inner presence, and that seat is not shaken by passing storms. So when pain returns, as it often does, don't ask, "Why is this happening again?" Instead ask, "Can I watch this?" without becoming it. That is the doorway, that is the release. Not by pushing pain away, but by watching it so completely that it no longer has a place to hide. The watcher is free, not because life becomes easier, but because you have discovered the space within that nothing can disturb. The moment you learn the lesson, the pattern loses its grip, not because something outside has changed, but because you have changed. Life is not repeating itself to punish you, it is only reflecting what still remains unresolved within. Each recurring experience is a gentle or sometimes fierce invitation to look deeper. Until you truly see what that moment is trying to teach you, it will return again and again, wearing different faces but carrying the same message. But once the lesson becomes clear in your awareness, the need for repetition vanishes. You no longer need the mirror because you've recognized the face. Most people are so busy escaping the discomfort that they miss the teaching. They blame others, seek distractions, or rush toward false solutions, anything but turning inward. But life is never mistaken. Whatever comes, comes for your evolution. If a situation hurts, don't simply escape it, study it, sit with it. Ask, what part of me is still reacting? What am I not seeing? This simple inquiry has the power to dissolve years of unconscious repetition. When the learning happens, the energy shifts. The same situation may arise, but your response is different. And that difference is freedom. You see, the pattern survives because it feeds on your unconsciousness. It needs you to be asleep, reactive, unaware. The moment you become fully conscious of it, not just intellectually, but viscerally, it can no longer function. You've taken away its fuel. Like a fire that goes out when the wood is removed, the pattern simply fades. Not because it was fought, but because it was understood. Understanding is the ultimate dissolver. This doesn't mean pain will never visit again. It means it won't own you anymore. You can meet it without fear, without judgment. You can say, "Ah, I've seen this before," and instead of falling into the old trap, you remain grounded in clarity. You respond from presence, not from habit. That is the true sign that the lesson has been learned, not that life stops testing you, but that you no longer lose yourself in the test. So don't fear the pattern, welcome it as a messenger. It comes bearing the exact wisdom your soul needs to grow. And the moment you receive that wisdom, not just as knowledge, but as lived truth, the cycle ends, the chain breaks, and what remains is not struggle, but stillness, not confusion, but clarity, not repetition, but release. True liberation comes when memory no longer manipulates your present. This does not mean forgetting what has happened, nor does it mean pretending it didn't shape you. It means the past no longer commands your emotions, your actions, or your sense of self. Memory is meant to be a tool, a storehouse of experiences to draw wisdom from, not a prison that defines how you live now. But for most people, memory becomes a master. Every new moment is filtered through yesterday's lens, and so life never feels fresh, only familiar in its suffering. You see, memory in itself is not the problem. It is your entanglement with it. When you carry emotional residue from the past and allow it to dictate your behavior, you are not living, you are reenacting. In this state, the past becomes a script and you become the actor who forgets it's just a role. Every relationship, every situation begins to feel like a repetition of old wounds because you are not responding to what is, you are reacting to what was. Until you see this clearly, the past will continue to project itself onto your present like an uninvited ghost. The shift happens when you no longer identify with the memory, but instead witness it with clarity. Then, memory becomes silent. It still exists, but it no longer disturbs. You can remember the pain without reliving it. You can acknowledge the past without allowing it to shape your mood, your choices, or your perception of others. This is the essence of inner freedom, not erasing what has been, but standing in such presence that the past cannot enter without your permission. When you reach this place of awareness, every moment becomes new. You begin to relate with life not from habit, but from openness. You are no longer defending against old fears or chasing old validations. You are simply here, alive, untouched by the shadows of what came before. And in that freshness, creativity blossoms. Love becomes real. Joy is no longer conditional. You start to feel the depth of life as it is, not as it once was. So the work is not to destroy memory, it is to put it in its rightful place. Let it be in the background, not the driver. Let it serve you, not enslave you. Because the truth is, your life is not behind you, it is always here, now. And when memory stops manipulating this moment, you'll find something profound: you were never broken. You were just carrying what was no longer needed. In stillness, the echo of old patterns fades and your inner intelligence awakens, not because silence fixes anything, but because it reveals everything. In the noise of constant activity, distraction and mental chatter, you are too occupied to notice the subtle movements within you. But when you become still, not just outwardly but inwardly, layers begin to peel away. The emotional residue, the reactive tendencies, the repetitive thoughts, they start to lose their rhythm. What remains is not emptiness, but presence, alive, aware, and deeply intelligent. Stillness is not inaction, it is a dimension of absolute receptivity. When you stop doing, trying, fixing, and simply become present, your system begins to align with a deeper intelligence, one that does not come from thought, but from pure awareness. This intelligence does not speak in words, it simply knows. It knows when to hold on and when to let go. It knows what is real and what is conditioning. In the silence, what is false becomes visible and what is true begins to rise from within. Old patterns cannot survive in stillness because they depend on your unconscious reactions. They thrive on your need to respond habitually, to keep the same emotional stories alive. But in deep awareness, there is no need to continue those loops. You are not ignoring them. You are watching them without feeding them. Without your energy, they begin to unravel on their own. No fight, no resistance, just a quiet undoing. In this space, healing happens not because you force it, but because you stop interfering. Life begins to move through you with grace. Your responses become clear, measured, real. You no longer carry the burden of emotional noise. And this clarity is not cold or detached, it is profoundly compassionate, it sees without distortion, it acts without ego, it speaks without fear. This is the intelligence that blooms in stillness, not the sharpness of intellect, but the vastness of awareness. So, if you truly want to break free, don't rush into more doing. Sit, be still, not to escape the world but to see it clearly, first within you. Let the patterns echo, let them fade. You don't need to chase answers. Just remain still long enough, and what needs to dissolve will dissolve. And what remains, what awakens, will be your truest guide. You do not need to fight the pattern, just stop feeding it. The more you resist, the more you strengthen it. This may sound paradoxical, but what you oppose energetically you also affirm. Patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior exist only because you have unknowingly identified with them. You say, "This is who I am," or "This always happens to me," and in doing so, you nourish the loop. The pattern survives on your belief that it is you. But once you recognize that you are not the pattern, it begins to fall apart, not by force but by absence of fuel. Identification is subtle. It hides in the background of every reaction, every repeated emotion, every triggered response. And the moment you say, "I am angry, I am hurt, I am broken," you give it life. But if you can shift your inner stance to simply say, anger is passing through, a memory is arising, pain is visiting, something profound happens. You've separated yourself from the movement. You're no longer caught in it. You're watching it. And the pattern cannot survive under the gaze of conscious detachment. This detachment is not cold. It is not about suppressing what arises. It is about seeing clearly and refusing to be pulled in. Just as clouds pass through the sky without changing the sky, emotions and thoughts can pass through your awareness without defining it. The sky never resists the clouds, it just holds them for a moment and lets them go. In the same way, when you allow emotions and patterns to move through without identifying, they complete their cycle and dissolve. What dissolves is not the experience itself, but your bondage to it. You no longer carry the imprint, the residue, the need to repeat. The space that opens up when identification drops is not empty, it is full of presence, it is full of clarity and possibility. In this space, there is no need to keep recreating the same scenarios because the lesson has been absorbed and the energy has been released. So understand this, you don't need to escape your patterns or destroy them. Just stop becoming them. Let them rise, let them fall, but remain rooted in the awareness that watches all things come and go. In that watching, the pattern starves. In that awareness, you are free. That moment is now, release it, don't repeat it. The mind loves to postpone transformation. It says, later, tomorrow, when I'm ready. But life is not happening tomorrow. Life is this breath, this beat, this stillness that surrounds you right now. If you are waiting for the right time to release what is heavy, what is outdated, what is no longer alive in you, you will be waiting forever. Because the only real time you have is this very moment, and in this moment you can choose differently. You can let go, not in theory but in actuality. You can be free. Repetition is not happening because the pattern is strong, it is happening because your awareness is absent. The moment you become fully present, fully conscious of what you're doing, saying, or feeling, you break the automatic flow. You interrupt the unconscious script. And in that interruption, there is a crack, a space where something new can enter. That crack is sacred. It is where transformation happens. But it doesn't wait. It appears when you are awake, and it disappears when you fall back asleep into habit. To release now means to see clearly, without justification, without blame, without delay. It means to stop telling the same old story and simply be here, unburdened. It means to stop explaining your pain and start watching it melt in the fire of your presence. It may feel small, a breath, a sigh, a moment of silence. But that small shift is the seed of freedom, because the past cannot hold you unless you carry it. And if you choose now, In this very breath, to set it down, the repetition ends here. No need to announce it, no need to prove anything to anyone. Just a quiet inner shift, a surrender, a soft closing of an old chapter that no longer serves your growth. Life is not waiting, it is moving, flowing, unfolding, and it's inviting you to flow with it, not as the wounded, not as the thinker, not as the past, but as awareness itself. Fresh, alive, free from yesterday's grip. So don't postpone your release. Don't wait for a better mood, a perfect condition, or external validation. The opening is already here. That moment is now, not tomorrow, not later. Now, release it. Don't repeat it. Because now is the only doorway through which your true self can enter.